When Guardiola took over Barcelona, the Blaugrana looked unbeatable. A young Pep had led an even younger Barcelona side, studded with stars from La Masia to incredible heights never seen before. Their very first season together ended in a historic treble, with the 2009 calendar year bringing the famous sextuple, where the side won 6 trophies. Many pundits already had this side down as the greatest team in club football history, a side that was virtually impossible to beat. But Barcelona's most hated rivals, Real Madrid, would not take this lying down and would do everything in their power to win back the title of being Spain's finest side. But here's the thing, Real Madrid had already been going above and beyond to keep up with Barcelona. Following Barcelona's incredible debut season with Pep, change was needed, and Perez was voted back into power by Los Blancos. He wasted little time and installed Manuel Pellegrini as his manager and went huge in the transfer market, ushering the reign of the Galacticos Mark II. This ranged from depth signings like Arbeloa, Granero, Raul Albiol and Alvaro Negredo to superstars. Alonso came in for over 30 million euros, as did Karim Benzema, and that was just the start, as 2 men with Ballon d'Ors in their trophy cabinets joined in Kaká and Cristiano Ronaldo. But even all of this was barely a bump in the Barcelona parade, as Real still crashed off the Copa del Rey in the round of 32 against Segunda Division side Alcorcón, and the round of 16 in the Champions League against Lyon. And Manuel Pellegrini's Real Madrid side is often forgotten, but this team accrued a ridiculous 96 points in La Liga, a club record at the time. But Barcelona went almost unbeaten, their sole blemish being against Atletico Madrid, and they won the league with 99 points. Perez knew that Galactico players and league records wouldn't be enough. He needed something a bit special. Mourinho had already established himself as one of the greatest managers in the game, with a sea of trophies to prove it. At Porto, both his seasons in 02 and 03 had resulted in not only winning the league domestically, but shining in Europe, winning the UEFA Cup in his first season, and taking an unfancied Porto side to the Champions League, amongst other successes. At Chelsea, he had reached superstar level, charming the English press off the pitch and dominating on it. He would become a back-to-back Premier League champion in his first 2 seasons with the Blues, as well as win the League Cup twice and the FA Cup in 2007, before leaving the club later that year. But footballing ability wasn't the only problem, as Pellegrini's 96 points without winning the league attested, and Mourinho had a key ingredient that made Perez identify him as his target.
Hoy, mañana y siempre, con el Barça en el corazón.
Mourinho had long held Barcelona in high regard, having worked there early as a translator for Sir Bobby Robson and Louis van Gaal, during the same spell that Guardiola was a key player for the side. And here is where the problems began. With essentially no playing career at a time where prior professional experience was valued more than ever as a manager, Mourinho had taken the difficult path to becoming an elite manager, starting as a youth team coach at Vitória de Setúbal, then assistant manager at Estrela, then a scout at Ovarense, before becoming a translator and assistant coach at Barcelona, then Benfica, and eventually becoming the main man for Benfica. But even when Mourinho became the main man there, he was not fully entrusted by the higher-ups and took a step down to União de Lira before joining Porto, from where he would begin to build his resume up, trophy by trophy. A difficult path to the top for Mourinho. So in the summer of 2008, when Rijkaard retired and Mourinho did not have a job, he relished the chance to finally become the head honcho at Barcelona, the club he so adored. But he was snubbed. Instead, the role was granted to Pep Guardiola, the local boy who had been a top player, but on the coaching front only had 1 year of experience with Barcelona B. Mourinho would not take the snub kindly. The love he had for Barcelona disappeared, and a chip on his shoulder would appear as he waited for the chance for revenge. Part of his revenge took place in the Champions League, as he had joined Inter when Pep was given the Barcelona role. In the 09-10 season, Barcelona were on track to win the Champions League back-to-back, until they met Jose Mourinho's Inter in the semi-final. Barcelona were overwhelming favourites, but Inter produced an incredible first leg display, running out 3-1 winners. In the second leg, Thiago Motta was sent off early, making Barcelona heavy favourites to mount the comeback. But Mourinho rallied his troops, and they sat back, employing catenaccio tactics to snuff out Barcelona. Inter would go on to lose. It was the most beautiful defeat of my life, Mourinho would go on to say, as a 1-0 defeat meant that Inter had progressed on aggregate. It was a style of blood, not skill. We were a team of heroes.
When Thiago Motta saw the red card, Barcelona dugout was celebrating like a goal. I felt in that moment they were feeling the job is done. And I went there while Pepe was speaking with Ibra to say, you think it is over, but it's far from over.
Mourinho went mad with his celebrations, unleashing his resentment for Barcelona as he ran across the pitch to celebrate in front of the Barcelona crowd, sparking a melee. Inter Milan would go on to win the Champions League that year, confirming everything that Perez had needed. Mourinho was a proven elite coach in multiple countries. He had taken on Barcelona fearlessly with Inter. As the club continued to hunt for La Decima, Mourinho showed he could win in Europe. And the Champions League win, by the way, had stopped Barcelona from winning the Champions League in the Santiago Bernabeu. And maybe most importantly, Mourinho had the mentality to take on Barcelona off the pitch as well. The arrival of Mourinho brought a renewed confidence to Real Madrid as he joined at the peak of his powers. So excited were the fans that Mourinho himself was deemed as a Galactico, and he was quick to make his presence known, bringing in transfers that would be key to his reign. Ricardo Carvalho followed from Chelsea. 2 German youngsters Mourinho believed in also joined, as Sami Khedira and Mesut Ozil became Madridsters. And all of this was topped off by the electric Angel Di Maria. Mourinho instantly began to put his philosophy in place, as he set his team up in a 4-2-3-1 that most often looked like this, with his key signings in Ozil, Angel Di Maria, Khedira and Carvalho immediately slotting into the side. Mourinho's Real Madrid immediately began to show they were special, winning 10 of their first 12 league encounters and outscoring everyone in Spain and conceding less than anyone else in La Liga. Cristiano Ronaldo was in phenomenal form, scoring 14 goals in those first 12 matches, as his rivalry with Messi began to escalate. But Gonzalo Higuain was also supplementing the attack nicely, as Mourinho's machine continued to purr. Real Madrid were top of the table. But matchday 13 brought the first El Clasico, a chance for Madrid to put some daylight between them and Barcelona, a chance to show that the early season form was the new norm, and that they were the new superpower, and a chance for Mourinho to get yet another bit of revenge. He lined up his side in the usual 4-2-3-1, with a double pivot of Khedira and Alonso, and Pepe and Carvalho as centre-backs, whilst Ramos was at right-back. Ozil orchestrated behind Benzema, with Ronaldo off the left. But as early as the 9th minute, it all began to go sideways for Mourinho. He had opted for a midfield 3 with a dedicated 10, and 2 deep-lying midfielders, but none were dedicated defensive midfielders. He had tried to account for this central weakness by defending extremely narrow, with Ozil on Busquets and Ronaldo central and high with Benzema. And Real actually held a fairly high line as they looked to implement a compact mid-block. However, Barcelona decided to exploit the wide regions left open by Real, particularly on the right, where Ronaldo was high and had less defensive work rate than Di Maria. Barcelona switched to a back 3, either with Busquets dropping in to split Piqué and Puyol, or more often Abidal tucking in. The goal was then to have 3 men outside of this narrow block, and with Alves being effectively unchallenged, he moved high, allowing Pedro to tuck in and Messi to drop into the midfield to cause an overload and help keep possession and still dominate the centre, or drag the centre-backs out of position to free up space for the runner. This right-hand side overwhelm often dragged Real Madrid across the pitch, and because Abidal was deep, Villa was free to hold the width and receive switches or make aggressive out-to-in runs. Mourinho later looked to adapt to this by switching Ronaldo and Di Maria's flanks, as the Argentine could provide more cover versus Alves and Messi but the damage was done. The game would go on to be a complete humiliation for Mourinho and Real Madrid, as Pep's men put 5 past them. It would also set the tone for all following Clásicos between Mourinho and Guardiola, as it was a game that was football, but also bordered on a tribal war, with every foul being contested, and malaise breaking out at every chance. In total, 13 yellow cards were handed out, with 2 being given to Sergio Ramos, another sign for future Clásicos. Whilst the media and Real Madrid fans began to panic as the spectre of Barcelona dominating once more loomed, Mourinho remained calm in the chaos. In the aftermath of the humiliation, Mourinho walked into a despondent locker room. "I know this hurts you. Perhaps for most of you it's the worst loss of your entire career. They're happy now and they seem to have won the championship, but they've only won 1 game. This is just the beginning. Perhaps people will talk about the significance of this defeat, but don't hide behind it. You must show your balls. After this defeat, we must fight for the title." Real Madrid responded instantly, winning 5 in a row and winning 42 of the next 54 available points. Barcelona was still purring along, however, but Real's form meant that on the 15th of April, Los Blancos still had title hopes, and fate had thrown together an interesting concoction. On the 16th of April, the 2 rivals had always been slated to face off for the second time in La Liga, but both sides had also made deep runs in the Copa del Rey, all the way to the final in fact, and this happened to be slated 4 days after the initial league meeting. Incredibly, the Champions League draw had brought them together for a 2-legged semi-final, meaning there would be a total of 4 El Clásicos in 17 days, a phase that would change the course of football history, as this 4-part series would become the world's focus. When speaking of Mourinho versus Pep, the Inter and Barcelona ties are often remembered just for the semi-final stage, where Mourinho reigned supreme. But before that, Barcelona and Inter were in the same group, but it was Guardiola who had won that head-to-head, with a draw away at the San Siro before a comfortable 2-0 win at the Nou Camp. But following his unsuccessful first attempts at Barcelona, Mourinho had gone back to the drawing board to plot a memorable night at the Nou Camp. After being hammered 5-0 at the Nou Camp with Real Madrid, the question was if Mourinho could pull off such an immediate adaptation once again. Despite Real having been otherwise a free-scoring machine, Jose decided to change tact after the first leg humiliation. Where before he had gone with a 4-2-3-1 without a dedicated defensive midfielder, now it was almost the opposite. Foreshadowing frequent occurrences in the latter half of his career, it was Ozil to be sacrificed. And it wasn't just a defensive midfielder that Mourinho brought in. It was a centre-back playing as a defensive midfielder in Pepe, as Mourinho's plan for extra solidity became clear. With Ozil now on the bench, rather than a 4-2-3-1, it was a dedicated 4-3-3, with no attacking midfielder. In the first leg, Ronaldo had defended high alongside Benzema, ready to spring forward on the counter. Now Ronaldo was forced to be more disciplined, as Real Madrid could line up in a 4-2-3-1, with Khedira often pressing Busquets, or a 4-1-4-1, with Pepe as the dedicated defensive midfielder, and both wingers defending even deeper. In fact, in general, unlike the first leg, Real weren't in a mid-block, but rather a deep and still compact block. Although Khedira was occasionally pressing, Mourinho had anticipated Messi dropping deep to try and create the 4 versus 2. So for the most part, they defended in a flatter midfield 3, meaning it would be Busquets who was the free man, and tasked with trying to penetrate that deep midfield block. Pepe was crucial, as his presence patrolling between the lines made it almost impossible for a man, be it Messi, Xavi or Iniesta, to get enough room between the lines to get their head up and try their intricate passes. In fact, it wasn't until the 53rd minute that Barcelona would get the breakthrough, as Busquets used the space provided to him to get his head up, and Messi had dropped deep. But Pepe's presence meant there was no need for a centre-back to follow him. Still, Villa's elite out-to-in movement found some impossible room, and Albiol, the replacement centre-back, got himself in a twist, and was forced to bring down Villa. Albiol sent off. Messi dispatched the penalty. The game had turned. Surely no team could stand against this Barcelona side with a man disadvantage. We were like the underdog, midfielder Granero would go on to say about the Mourinho reign. But he made us believe we weren't. He not only told us everything was possible, but he made it possible. The mentality Mourinho was instilling in his players was visible even this early in his reign, as players refused to take defeat. They gritted their teeth and altered their tactics. Pepe had to relinquish the midfield role he had excelled in, dropping into centre-back momentarily. But such was his performance in the midfield that Mourinho quickly brought in Arbeloa, pushing Ramos to centre-back so Pepe could move back into the midfield. Benzema was also brought off, with Ozil coming on to best position Ronaldo for the counter-attack. The plan worked. Barcelona couldn't penetrate 10-man Real Madrid. All it took was one error, Alves on Marcelo, leading to a penalty that Ronaldo duly dispatched. One each for Messi and Ronaldo, one each for Barcelona and Real Madrid. Mourinho's influence was growing. The Copa del Rey just 4 days later tipped the scale, from the rivalry in the past few years being competitive to now being downright spiteful. Mourinho had been throwing subtle jibes in press conferences, but Guardiola was not biting. "I know, Mourinho, he's trying to provoke me into a reaction, but it won't work. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to answer back. Only when I think the time is right." Mourinho had seen the blueprint in the 1-1 league match and doubled down in this encounter. The midfield three remained, with Pepe at the base. And with Albiol still suspended, Ramos had to move to centre-back. But despite being sacrificed in the last match, Ozil was vital to Mourinho's plans, and was the creative hub, and the injury of Di Maria was just as important. So now Ozil and Di Maria were the wingers, unleashing the German's creativity, as he could still drop deep to defend more centrally, whilst doing the same in the attack to provide a central overload. And with Di Maria on the left flank right from the get-go, he could cover the threat of Dani Alves and Messi. In this match, it was Benzema who was sacrificed, so Ronaldo was perfectly positioned to be freed from any defensive responsibility and utilize his pace on the break. The match was incredibly closely contested, but what was evident is that the 5-0 loss was a blip that would never be allowed again. The game was tetchy and the fouls continued to pile up, and almost every foul and every simulation would lead to a tussle between the two sides, and the two benches threatening to invade the pitch. Mourinho had well and truly installed his fighting spirit into the side, and there was no longer any inferiority complex to the much heralded Pep team. The game was goalless as it looked like Mourinho had figured out the Barcelona attack. But into extra time and Mourinho's master plan came into effect. His defensive midfielders, Alonso and Pepe, won the ball off of Messi, handing it over to the marauding Marcelo. He played a 1-2 with Di Maria, who was playing off of the left-hand side, and on his strong foot, swung in the perfect cross. Ronaldo rose. Madrid would go on to win the Copa del Rey. It was a massive moment in the Mourinho tenure. It was Real Madrid's first Copa del Rey in 18 years, and their first trophy since the 07-08 La Liga title. In fact, at the end of the season, Los Blancos would show off the trophy in an open bus parade. But the fallout from this match was just beginning. This moment would cause chaos. After the game, Guardiola complained about the offside call, saying it was a 2-centimeter decision from a linesman who must have had very good vision to rule out the goal. Mourinho had long been getting under Pep's skin and saw the opportunity to pounce. He passionately hit back in a press conference.
Entramos en una nueva era, que es la era de un tercer grupo, que es el grupo.
A new era has begun. Until now, there were two groups of coaches. One very, very small group of coaches who did not speak about refs, and then a big group of coaches, of which I am part, who criticize referees when they've made mistakes. People like me who don't control their frustration, but also people who are happy to value a great job from a ref. Now, there's a third group, which is only Guardiola. He criticizes referees when they get decisions right. There is a new meaning to football now. In his first season, Guardiola lived the scandal of Stamford Bridge. Last year, he played against a 10-man Inter. Now he's not happy with the refs getting it right. I'm not asking the ref to help my team. If the referee is good, everybody will be happy. Except Guardiola. He wants them to get it wrong. Pep had been determined to bite his lip, but now he took the bait. Ahead of the first leg of their Champions League encounter, he walked into the press conference room, starting by asking the journalists, which one is Mourinho's camera, setting the tone for an explosive press conference.
Mañana a las 8:45 nos enfrentamos aquí en el campo. Fuera del campo ya ha ganado, lo ha ganado durante todo el año, lo ha ganado durante toda esta temporada y en el futuro lo que va a ser. Le regalo su Champions particular fuera del campo, se la lleve a casa y la disfrute como todas las otras. En el otro jugaremos, a veces ganaré, a veces perderé. En esta sala él es el puto jefe, el puto amo, es el que más sabe del mundo y yo no quiero ni competir ni un instante. Solo recuerdo que hemos estado juntos 4 años.
The battle on the pitch was getting personal, as Guardiola would go on to say on a separate day. I tried to learn from Jose on the pitch, but off the pitch I prefer to learn as little from him as possible. Mourinho doubled down on his winning tactics. Again, Pepe at defensive midfield, providing the steal. But now Lassana Diarra was added to the equation for more solidity. Real Madrid sat off of Barcelona, letting Busquets once again have the ball deep, whilst Real Madrid were once again looking to launch the counters through Ronaldo. But interestingly, Barcelona were now wary of the counter-attack, sitting slightly deeper in the defensive phase to reduce the room that Ronaldo had to attack on the transition. Ronaldo, for his physicality, was not a target man, so Real consistently lost possession, meaning from minute 0 to minute 60, Barcelona had 74% possession. Such was the problem that Mourinho had to bring on Adebayor at halftime for Ozil to let them have an outlet. But tempers were flaring as always. As the teams went down the tunnel, another scuffle erupted, and substitute keeper Manuel Pinto was sent off. But the turning point would be a different sending off. On the 60th minute, the ball broke loose, and Pepe lunged into a reckless tackle. With 10 men, Real Madrid fought on valiantly, as they had when they had found themselves in a similar situation. However, Barcelona now had a stranglehold. From minute 62, Barcelona had 82% of the ball, and Real Madrid did hold strong until the 76th minute, where Messi broke through. The Argentine would then double the lead in the dying embers of the match to put the tie effectively to bed, with a goal that would be etched in the memories of many. Mourinho would also be sent off late, contributing to one of the most iconic post-match tirades.
Conseguir la respuesta, que es ¿por qué? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué Ovrebo? ¿Por qué Buzaca? ¿Por qué De Blecker? ¿Por qué Stark? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué Ovrebo hace 3 años? ¿Por qué el Chelsea no podía ir a final? ¿Por qué año pasado con Inter, que ha sido un milagro? ¿Por qué este año?
A €50,000 fine and a 5-match Champions League ban would follow. With no Mourinho, though Madrid would put up a fight, the 2-goal head start for Barca was too much. The 4 Clásicos had ended, 25 yellow cards across the ties, and 5 red cards, and Barcelona would go on to win the League and Champions League that year. But the season was anything but a failure for Real Madrid. They had their first silverware since 07-08, and the semi-final in the Champions League was the deepest they had gone since 2003. The foundation was there to build on. In the transfer market, Mourinho realized last season's team had been close to greatness, so it was more about tweaks rather than overhauls, with the major incomings being Callejon, Nuri Sahin, Rafael Varane and Contrao, keeping Real Madrid's spend under £50 million. The prior season's results had thrust them together for a Supercopa de España meeting, meaning another 2 El Clásicos. The stress of being put through the psychological grinder in press conferences by Mourinho was beginning to show on Pep. Mourinho had been relentless in the last season when speaking of Barcelona. Deep down, if they're good people, it cannot taste right for them. I hope that one day, Guardiola has the chance of winning a brilliant, clean championship with no scandal. Mourinho's ability to cultivate a cult-like devotion in his side was also beginning to affect the Spain national team, as the squad was slowly splintering into Barcelona and Real Madrid camps.
Even the relationship between players. I remember when we were going to the national team after those games, and it was tough because Mourinho sometimes...
He creates that.
Yeah, he goes to the mind of the player, and we were in the dressing room of the national team, and I was going to Iker Casillas, hey Iker, and the guy didn't talk to me, what's happening?
And the bad blood would continue in the two-legged Supercopa. They were two closely contested ties, as again, the progress under Mourinho continued to show itself. The first leg ended 2-2 in a game where Real Madrid looked like the dominant force, perfectly teeing up an explosive second leg. And again, that second leg showed the two teams were now almost impossible to separate, with Iniesta opening the scoring before Ronaldo hit back only 5 minutes later. His nemesis would score just before the half, and when it looked like Barcelona would see out the game, Benzema stepped up. Just when the match seemed like it was destined for extra time, Messi produced another moment in the 88th minute to break Madrid hearts. That heartbreak quickly turned into frustration. In the dying embers of the match, with the game gone, Marcelo launched himself into a reckless tackle on Fabregas, meters from the bench. The cards would fly, with Marcelo, Ozil and David Villa being sent off, but perhaps the defining image during the brawl would be Mourinho languidly strolling up to the melee and gouging the eye of Tito Villanova before walking away as if nothing happened. But it had been observed. Mourinho was banned for 2 games, though bizarrely the ban was lifted not long after he apologized. But in this new season, Madrid was soaring in the league more so than ever, courtesy of some tactical tweaks. Mourinho had fully begun Sergio Ramos' transition from right-back to centre-back, with Arbeloa now frequently covering at right-back. The only exception was against higher-caliber opposition, where Ramos would play wide to offer extra stability, whilst Lassana Diarra would often replace Ozil in these matches as well. Ramos at centre-back gave them extra ball-playing ability in the first phase, with Alonso as the deep playmaker always providing the outlet. This midfield was perfectly balanced, as Khedira was the legs making progress up and down the pitch, whilst Ozil provided the creative spark. This allowed Madrid to dominate possession and create clear chances in their own right. But on the counter, they were a different animal. When defending, Di Maria tended to be deep and tucked in at times, whilst Ronaldo stayed high. So from this shape, with the long passing range of Ramos and Alonso, they still had the option to seek the pace of Ronaldo or the movement of Benzema immediately. They could also give it to Ozil, whose elite ball carrying allowed them to push up the pitch and then release a pass. They ended the season with 15 counter-attack goals, comfortably the most in the league. Their good form meant that after match day 14 they were flying, 3 points ahead of Pep's men with a game in hand. A win would have made it an intimidating lead this early in the season. But in this encounter, Mourinho changed tactics completely, no longer sitting deep and looking to compact the space, and instead pressed more furiously than even Barcelona usually did. Benzema and Di Maria had incredible engines, so they could press all game, whilst Ronaldo upped his work rate for this encounter, with the young German tying up Busquets to prevent the play, and it paid off less than a minute into the game, with Benzema pouncing to have the Bernabeu dreaming of a first league title in years, even this early in the match. But Barcelona would bite back, dropping their midfield even deeper to try and beat the press and maintain possession. It would be a ploy that worked, as Barcelona slowly wrestled control back of the match, and on the half-hour mark, Alexis Sanchez would strike back, with Xavi firing them ahead just after the break. Not long after, Fabregas dealt the killer blow, as Barcelona went on to win the encounter by 3-1 and put themselves firmly back in the title race. But as they had done following the other El Clasico losses, Mourinho's men got their heads up in a major way. They went on an 18-match unbeaten streak in La Liga, of which 15 were wins and 3 draws, determined to once again become the rulers of Spain. The 19th match would see Real Madrid scheduled to visit the Nou Camp, a stadium they had not won at since 2007. Even the Madrid players had no faith. After their 2-0 defeat in the Champions League in the season prior, Mourinho said, "I have to hear even in my own dressing room that it's impossible to win here." There were only 5 matches left, and a Barcelona win would have left them breathing down Real Madrid's necks, poised to win a 3rd La Liga title in 3 years. The stage was set. Mourinho stuck to his 4-2-3-1, but now had full faith in his side, not bending for Barcelona, and as a result not opting for extra steel in the midfield in the form of Pepe or Lassana Diarra. Barcelona, on the other hand, had been experimenting with the back three throughout the season. In this match, Mourinho deviated from the aggressive press of the last encounter, and instead they sat deeper in a disciplined block. With the wingers defending narrower than usual, they were successfully clogging up the center of the pitch for large swathes of the match. This meant that the flanks were the outlets for Barcelona. However, Christian Teo was nowhere near as big a threat as David Villa, as this match would show. Whilst Dani Alves was tasked with being the right winger, for as much flair as he had, he would not be the same offensive threat that a real winger is. The shape also had more problems for Barcelona, as when Pedro was wide, when Messi dropped in, Pedro could move to centre forward, while Alves provided the width. But with Alves as a natural fullback, he would hold the width, as he was incapable of attacking the centre forward role, meaning that the Real Madrid centre backs could afford to be much more flexible. And even if Alves had tucked in, it would have left absolutely no width on the right-hand side. Madrid were handling them excellently defensively and making inroads on the counter-attack, but the breakthrough would come in an unconventional manner. From the corner, Valdez spilt the header, and Puyol looked to shield the ball rather than clear it. Sami Khedira pounced. But Barcelona would ratchet up the pressure, and when their equalizer came in the 70th minute from Sanchez, it would be just as messy. Barcelona were perfectly poised to find the winner in front of their home crowd and blow the title race wide open. But two of Mourinho's duels had other ideas. Ozil picked up the ball on the right wing, drawing a man and opening up the smallest of gaps. Ronaldo attacked the space and got onto the end of a perfectly weighted pass. Valdez closed the angle well, but as the new Camp Sials reached fever pitch, Ronaldo had ice in his vein, taking a deft touch to adjust the angle and slot home. As coolly as he dispatched the chance, he ran over to the corner flag. The famous Calma celebration would go on to be sanctioned, but no one in white would have cared. Los Blancos held on to the 2-1 win to leap 7 points ahead of the Blaugrana. It was the defining moment of the title race and the Mourinho era. Madrid would go on to win their last 4 matches, meaning that their last loss was the first Clásico match 22 matches prior. What must also never be forgotten is what an attacking spectacle this Mourinho side was, with the likes of Ronaldo, Ozil, and Benzema all performing to ridiculous levels, and the side scoring a record 121 goals in the league alone. All of this meant that Mourinho's men became centurions, accumulating a record 100 points in La Liga to once again become kings of Spain. The battles on the pitch and off of it had worn away at his great rival Guardiola, who not only chose to leave Spain, but take a year out of football entirely. Over a decade later, Piqué would confirm suspicions that Mourinho's mental warfare had a lot to do with Pep's decision to leave.
But it's true that Mourinho in the press conference every time, he was every day. In Mourinho, that time Madrid won the league that year, and all of a sudden he decided to leave for so many reasons, but I'm sure that part of it was because with Mourinho it was too much.
Mourinho's revenge arc was complete. Having knocked Barcelona out with Inter, got Madrid back into the winning rhythm before everything culminated in his record-breaking title. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, check out our greatest performances playlist for more videos like this, starting with this one on screen, giving you the tactical story into Messi's most iconic performance.